and kind of great. So I'm not sure. I know you can like use these if you're baking lighting from Maya. You could totally bake these lights out for use in Unity. The exact process for that is I'm not entirely sure. But they're really nice for doing more realistic lighting, more interesting lighting. And a lot of times they'll use these for like architectural rendering, stuff like that. But they are really, really cool. So basically what an IES light is it's just going to give you a little bit more interesting profile for your lighting. So if I think it might just be that corner of the screen that I can't click on. That's super weird. Anyway, so I'm just going to Google IES lights really quick. And I'm not going to lie, anytime I need to download these, I just Google IES lights download and just sort of pick a random website that doesn't look creepy. In this case, where's the guy? Leo Moon has a bunch of stuff. That's where I got the ones today, but so you can go on, like, if you go on here, you can, again, just pretty much see a bunch of different IES lights, and you can just download whatever from there. If you go into images, so you can see a lot of times they'll have, like, different previews of the lights, but here's an example of different IES lights. Basically, they just make these really interesting sort of ray patterns and ways that the light interacts with the surfaces around it. So again, really cool for like extra stuff. They're really interesting for like sconce effects, for like different wall lights, stuff like that. In this case, I've made, and this is me actually going into that weird little flashlight thing that I set up, or mentioned earlier. So if I go into my images, I can go into, I labeled all of these incorrectly, by the way, because I'm a crazy person, but, what the heck, I'll just dump them on top, I don't even care. But I have a little render of a flashlight that I did with different lighting on it, so you can see this is funky little flashlight I made. This is just a regular area light. It's fine, serviceable, looks like a flashlight. And then I was also, same flashlight, same everything else. I just put an IES light instead of an area light, and you can see that the reflection pattern is way more interesting. I'm not sure if this is particularly realistic for a flashlight. I did not look up reference for this, but certainly more interesting looking. And they have a bunch of different ones you can use. Like here's another just different one. So again, they're really good for stuff like that. Or like if you need a light for a display case, that kind of thing. A lot of times they'll have different ways that the light interacts with the wall. So any questions on just like what an IES light, I guess, looks like, or like why you'd want to use it? Okay. If anyone's in the flashlight folder following along, in my source images, I just stashed a crap ton of a lot of lights that I downloaded from Leo Moon. And this is pretty much when you download it, what the lights look like. So there's these IES files. That's what you're actually going to plug into the Maya light. And then they also give you these nice little like PNG renders of the profile of the light, so you don't need to go through and test each one. You can just kind of be like, I kind of like this one, that looks neat, and just choose the corresponding file. So again, don't put in the PNGs into Maya, they're not going to work. You do need the IES files. But in terms of actually setting these up in Maya, it's fairly straightforward, honestly. So for Arnold, and also Redshift, pretty much they're more or less the same process, but just go to your lights menu like you normally would, and in this case, you want a photometric light. So when I click that, I'm just going to go ahead and set up my render view. Mwahaha. And you can see, so even though I do have a light in the scene, you can see that nothing is rendering. These will only render if you put an IES file into them. So I'm just going to click on my light, go into my attribute editor, and you can see that the first thing it's asking for is like, hey, give me a photometry file. Don't know how you actually pronounce that, but just click on that little folder, pick a random light. I don't know. I like, let's try 3-lobed V. Why not? And you can see as soon as I input that file, I do get something rendering in my scene. So I can move that like up or down like I normally would. They get really interesting if you look at them from the side view. And okay, cool. I was like, I picked the most boring light ever. If I turn the intensity up pretty aggressively on that, you can see this is kind of like skimming across the surface, but I get this really interesting like hot beam of light in the center, a little bit less light, and then like this sort of different light here. So again, these are really, really cool for doing slightly more detailed lighting. Like doing this effect with a regular area light would be the worst thing ever. Different random light. Honestly, they're really fun to just sort of play with, but these do end up being really, really nice for stuff like, again, like wall sconces, if you have recessed lights in your ceiling, flashlights, that kind of thing. Those are all great candidates for IES lights. And in this case, so what I was noticing when I was playing with these, don't be afraid to set your intensity up higher, because like some of these, they end up looking kind of dim. And they'll get, you know, if you need them brighter, again, just set the intensity up. The fact that the slider only goes up to 10 is not preventing you from entering values of like 400 in here, which actually looks pretty cool. I do like this one much brighter. It looks much more interesting. But anywho, so that's pretty much setting up an IES light in Arnold. You know, you can go through and change the color if you want. Use color temperature, kind of whichever. And then they also have their own, you know, settings for samples and stuff, like pretty much all the other lights do. Any questions about IES lights in Arnold? All right. So again, now that I actually have Redshift on my computer, I should close this. Pretty much the same dealio there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and weird. I think it's just like taking a sec to process my overly complicated Lambert plane that I have in my scene. There we go. That was weird. All right, so for Redshift, again, pretty much the same thing. You just go to lights, and in this case, it's called Redshift IES light. So I'm going to throw that in there, and I will just move it out of my ground plane because I'm not going to display anything. And I'm just going to, again, IES profile. I'm just going to run in, grab not my scenes. Run in, grab random profile, sure, define spot, and you can see that now we have a lovely IES light in Redshift. So the process pretty much is exactly the same. So, yeah. Again, any questions on IES lights or anything like that? Cool. I would totally recommend using these for your finals, especially animation kids, because they are just a nice way to give extra realistic light to your scene. And they also don't take really longer to render than other lights. Like, pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, they render in the same amount of time. So it's really like no reason to not use them, because they're super lovely. All right, so that's IES light.